Washington Huskies, 3-1. They were Pac-12 North champs, and they were unable to play in the Pac-12 championship game, and they were replaced by the Oregon Ducks, who were 3-2. Stanford 4-2. They were that Pac-12 North wins leader that I had. So big things that we have. We've got one of the highest rated quarterback prospects in Washington football history, who has not only committed and signed, but will also be on campus to be able to push Dylan Morris for the starting job at quarterback. Now, we didn't really get to see much of that offense under John Donovan. Last year was year one. Kind of felt like a little bit more on that in a little bit. So Dylan Morris was a freshman starter last year. Sam Heward from the great Heward line of Washington football, and Patrick O'Brien, a Colorado State transfer. That's going to be your quarterback competition. Can Morris get pushed by the highly rated freshman? That's going to be a lot of the excitement as Huskies fans try and figure this out. There is some precedent for somebody coming in as a freshman, winning the job, and then holding on to it. It's Jake Browning. And, Jake Browning was Pac-12 Offensive Rookie of the Year his first season when he was able to lead the Huskies all the way into the Pac-12 championship game. Defense already had some key players opted out last year, but I thought they played pretty well. Elijah Molden is going to be your big name that needs to be replaced, but a lot of key contributors back. And with Jimmy Lake, there is an expectation of a certain standard that can be upheld on the defensive side. Now, I have respect for the under champs. And boy, when it comes to pace, when it comes to play calling, when it comes to scheme, Washington just not much of a hurry. Not really too concerned about being explosive. Again, respect to the under champs, but when we're talking about the Washington Huskies, you're going to have to hang with USC if you want to win the Pac-12. And if you want to hang with USC, you got to be able to score. My big burning question beyond just the quarterback competition is whether or not this offense is just going to be a complementary piece, or whether it's going to be a piece that's the reason that they are competing for a conference title. So is that an offense that was stripped down to basically spring game offense because of the time that they had under COVID? I don't know, but these are the things that are really burning for me at Washington.
What did Nick Saban say the other day in that coaching clinic, that virtual one that he gave to those high school coaches in Louisiana?
He said, normally we think 13 points is our goal, but we averaged 16 and we were the best in the ACC. We got to go score. He's basically given up on trying to win with defense.
Yep. And he said, I grew up, run the football, don't turn it over, control the line of scrimmage, play great defense. That's how you win. He goes, you ain't winning the damn thing with that formula anymore in college football with the way the rules are. We can block linebackers and safeties on pass plays.
Saban's going to get all the credit for this, and I've been saying this for 2 years. I've been saying this on the Cover 3 podcast. Why isn't that going viral? Dang it.
He was trying to claim that he made his change before Lane even came in, so that was interesting. But I follow a lot of Washington fans on Twitter who I feel like are really sharp. There's a pretty serious Washington community of fans out there, as well as on Dogman. And they're worried, man. They're worried because they think Jimmy Lake is an awesome defensive coach, an excellent recruiter, at least he was as an assistant, and they have a real opportunity here to do something. But they're worried that the hire of John Donovan as offensive coordinator is very much a move that a defensive coordinator, as a head coach would make, right? Just somebody who won't screw up my defense. And we know that's not how you get to the next level in college sports. I mean, they have some very concerning stuff here. So they were second to last in the nation to passes to outside receivers last year, 93rd in passes to the slots. They basically just threw the ball to the tight ends and the backs all the time. Now they got good backs, they got good tight ends, but they also ran the ball on first and second down more than just about any team in the nation. And that's not great, man. You need to open it up and throw the ball around if you want to compete at the highest level. If you want to win 7-8 games, keep doing what you're doing. And I think they will.
I will say, I understand the concern, and we saw it too, because it was a pretty conservative offense. And again, it's hard to know exactly how much to take away from anything we saw last year. But I will say this, in its defense, it was efficient. They did score 30 points a game. They played only 4 games. They were 4th in the Pac-12 in yards per play. If you look at points per drive, The only Pac-12 team that had more points per drive than Washington did on offense last year was Arizona State. Washington comes in second at 2.88. That's ahead of Oregon. That's ahead of UCLA. It's ahead of all of them. Their problem was in the red zone, they did not finish drives. They had to settle for way too many field goals. So it's like if they could finish drives, this is suddenly an offense that looked a lot better than we thought. But I do agree. I think that it is going to be very difficult to sustain that over a 12-game schedule than it was over a 4-game schedule, because we've seen time and time again that, like Nick Saban says when he's on that call with the Louisiana coaches, besides send all your players to me, you got to win with offense these days. So I think that we're going to need to see that kind of transition for Washington if it's going to get back into that spot where it's a contender in the Pac-12 North and it's competing for Pac-12 titles and it's competing again for a playoff berth. Because if you just look at the trend in the conference right now, and particularly in the division, there's one team in that division who we'll be talking about soon who is recruiting at a level that nobody else in it is even coming close to. And if that gap is going to continue being the case and Washington can't step it up in the recruiting trail to catch up with them, they're going to have to find a way offensively to figure it out. And maybe bringing in 5-star QBs is a good way to do that. And maybe that will help lead them there. And maybe that was part of it too. Maybe they just didn't feel comfortable with their personnel to run that style of offense. And maybe Heward coming in as somebody they feel is more capable of doing it. Or maybe we've got a defensive coordinator as the head coach who's still in that, well, just don't mess it up and let my defense win us games.
I think too, when you look at it, defense bringing back majority of the players who were pretty good last year. When you look at their schedule, I don't see anybody that really intimidates you. Like even going to Michigan week 2, kind of like, all right, maybe Michigan has firepower, but you might be able to win ugly against Michigan. Cal, Oregon State, I could see Washington getting off to a solid start while their offense is kind of adjusting and figuring out some of the pieces, because playmaker on the outside is a big one. You mentioned tight end, who's awesome. The running back's good. Wide receiver's just an unknown. Quarterback, a little bit of an unknown. But can you figure some things out? And then when you get to UCLA, and Oregon in November, can you keep those games competitive? Possibly. But I think that's the one advantage of having a defensive coach, is that the defense does look like it should be something you could hang your hat on. But I don't think you get as exposed as much in the Pac-12 by dynamic offenses as you would in some other conferences and some other teams you'd have to play against.
I think that.
As far as newcomers, there are some guys in this team who I do like a lot. I think Sam Heward is a really good quarterback prospect. He's Brock's nephew, and
Damon.
Yeah, right. Damon's son. He's very good. Like, if Chandler Morris doesn't step it up, it wouldn't shock me to see Heward step in there. Although with the defensive head coach, they don't really love playing freshmen, as we've seen time after time. I think Cade Otton's a really good tight end. And as far as receivers, they lost quite a bit. They're very inexperienced at the receiver position, which doesn't give me warm fuzzies about the chance of them opening this thing up. But they got a receiver from Texas Tech, a transfer, who I've seen in person. He got hurt his senior year of high school. I think he has real ability. His name's Jalen Polk. And that offense, with how much they run the ball, should create a lot of one-on-one opportunities for him on the outside. He's a guy who's a really good leaper, can go up, get the football. And so I'd look for him to maybe be a guy who kind of comes from off the radar to help them out offensively. Defensively, man, I thought what they did was fascinating. It's only 4 games, but if you want to talk about what's the value of run defense versus what's the value of pass defense in the modern college game, Washington had one of the worst run defenses in the entire country, and yet they finished 19th in defensive SP+. I mean, they're 119th against the run, second against the pass, at least on my numbers. I mean, guys, that kind of shows it right there. Like the pass is much more valuable in today's college football game. I'd much like it's always been a trope: stop the run, stop the run. Washington's like, we ain't stopping shit. Sorry, we're not stopping the run, and it's not going to matter. We're stopping the pass, and it's going to work.
Yeah, if you look at the adjusted yards per attempt of their pass defense, the national average was 8.4. They were at 7.27, so they were more than a yard below the national average. If you look at yards after the catch per reception, the national average was 5.42. Washington was at 3.81. They did a terrific job against, and that's what Jimmy Lake. I mean, when you think about all the defensive backs that Washington has sent to the NFL in recent years, it's like this really doesn't come as a surprise because this has kind of been what they've been excellent at for a while, and it's been the focal point of what they do, and they still do it really well. So that is one reason to be optimistic about the defense. I feel like with Jimmy Lake in charge there, I don't care what the situation is as far as returning starters and all that kind of stuff. I always feel like there's going to be a very solid footing on the defensive side of the ball. The offense is going to be the question mark every single year with the Huskies.
Do you think the way they play it will have to change a little bit with them losing Molden and Taylor?
Probably. I think that you probably can't be as aggressive, particularly early in the season. I think you're going to have to be a little more conservative with what you're doing in coverages just to protect guys and trying to learn and get that kind of stuff going on. But I think that the longer the season goes on, we'll probably see them kind of adapt and adopt. I think that they're probably spending a lot of time this spring already getting it in because it is very important to what they do.